Hello, everybody. I jumped on about 10 minutes early because 10 minutes earlier than scheduled because I was ready and I have a lot I want to get done today. So I just thought might as well get this going. I'm all tired. Yesterday evening, I recorded Making Comics podcasts with the Making Comics guys, Keith Foster and Stearns Outlaw. We recorded the holiday episode and then also the year in review episode. So back to back. And for full disclosure, I drank too much and I'm tired and I'm a little headachy. Like I'm kind of blah. And I spent like however many hours that was all told. I didn't even time it. Engaged in conversation and talking. And to be perfectly honest, I'm a little sick of hearing myself talk. Something like I usually need. I like to space that stuff out. So this may be a shorter episode. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if people show up but I'm kind of like, all right, that's I scratch that itch. I can only deal with so much of me. So and I might have hit my limit last night. But anyway, here we go. So I am still working on page 43. Which means I'm about where I have been for a few weeks now, which is just a couple days behind where I would like to be. You've heard me say this before, but the ideal is to be starting a new every Saturday morning. For a while now, maybe almost a couple months. I don't know. I'd have to track. I've been starting pages on like Sunday or Monday, and with at least one week starting it on Tuesday, which sucks. Not a fan, but I've just been a little behind. Partly from life stuff. It's been a mix of things, and if we're going historic, why is Gary a couple days behind? Some of it is external stuff, no control over. Some of it is this is a particularly difficult stretch of pages I'm drawing. They are far more complicated than I anticipated when I was doing the planning, just now thumbing and page layout. You look at that stuff, and maybe some pages are hard, some pages are easy. I knew these might be a little tricky, but I didn't appreciate how involved this drawing would be, and not just on the race complicated, but which is definitely the case, but also outside my comfort zone. Drawing like in a way that I just don't draw very often. When drawing in a way that I'm a little insecure about, so a little cautious about. So I'm like trying something and then undoing it, and trying something else and then undoing that before I'm finding like, oh, that works. It's just been a slog. I've been talking about it a few weeks now. Now I'm not going to paper the point. I've also talked about is still the case. December is just a tough drawing month. When I look at what I need to get done this month, these are some of the most challenging just in the entire comic. And there is, I think, all told, let me look here. I mean, there was a solid 15, 18 pages in this whole section where none of them are easy. And that's where I'm in right now. Now, on the bright side, I only have after I finish page 43, which will probably get done. I'm thinking tomorrow, or late tomorrow, probably. I only have about 3 rough pages left in the stretch to the end of the month. And after that, it lightens up considerably. It's none of it's easy. Drawing isn't easy, but it's not like this stretch I'm in, and I think will help. Just even if it doesn't get that much technically easier, it will help my morale. You know, it'll feel like okay, I got through that section, and now I'm on to something else. So yeah, there is. I think I've mentioned this a few weeks ago. There is a 2-page full bleed spread coming up. That'll be drawing probably in late January or early February, depending on how I'm doing. That will be tough, but I'm actually looking forward to it because it'll be fun. I like doing full page drawings. I like 2-page spreads are really fun. Yes, it's there's more to it, more you're spending a lot more time, and you're trying to make them a little flashy, so you're putting in a lot more detail. But that's also satisfying that you're ending up with what you know is going to be. I mean, showstoppers are going to say about your work, but you know what I mean. Like it's fun to do like this thing that's going to stand out from the rest of the book, hopefully. Okay. So that's where I am. In terms of what I wanted to talk today, talking to Jim a couple days or weeks ago about the streams, and he had an idea I really liked. He thought it would be fun if I, or interesting, or both, hopefully, if I took a select panel from the upcoming book, DvsM 1979, out early next year, and just kind of deep dive on it. Talk, just share one particular panel from the book that's spoilery, and just talk a little bit of the thought that goes into it, and whatever, just kind of free associate, plan anything, don't script anything. I liked that idea. I thought it might be something I would experiment with. I don't know if it'll, how long I'll do it or how many times I'll do it. But I thought it was a shot. This first time will be a little different, because I had wanted to talk more about a category of panels in DvsM with exams from 75 and 97, and now like the upcoming book. And we'll see how it goes. Like, I haven't scripted anything. I haven't thought about it. I thought about it. The minimal amount to do a PowerPoint of the slides, the examples of panels, and like what the topic is. But I haven't even thought out what I want to say. So we'll see how that goes. So let's see. I'm going to add to stream. I pick font that does not exist. This is an interesting thing. I think I've learned from doing top 5. I should have learned. It doesn't matter. This is the only text in the whole presentation. It's all just images. But when you load a PowerPoint to StreamYard, it seems to just default everything to Calibri or something. The only way to preserve a font is basically to screen cap it and insert it as an image. Like it seems like StreamYard only understands Calibri, which is, but whatever. Anyway. What I was going to kind of run today was introduction. So, as people who read DvsM know, and people who don't read DvsM, I'm not sure why you're watching, but I'm glad you're here. As I'll explain to you now, DvsM is a very character-focused anthology sci-fi horror series. And each installment, there are 2 out right now: DvsM 1995, DvsM 1997. There's one coming in a few months, DvsM 1979, and 3 more in planning states that will come out whenever. Each one has probably heard the expression for like a POV character. There's one particular character that this story is primarily about. There may be other characters here and there. Strange. is there? Okay, hold on just one second. Let me see here. Let me know if there's echoes now. Going forward, I'm using a different mic. Okay. DvsM has POV characters. Each installment of DvsM focuses on a particular character and watches them through a particularly significant few minutes or hours or days of their life. Okay, some little fork in the road that they approached where everything changed for them after that. That's roughly what DvsM is. So with each DvsM, I don't have the luxury of walking out Luke Skywalker or something that everybody knows, and I don't have to, do a lot of groundwork. Every DvsM, I'm having to introduce a whole new character to you. Just a whole new person that you've never seen before in the comics, I've never talked about in the comics, usually. That you don't know anything about, but for this story to work, you need to get to know them, and you need to, it's not so important. I think likability is an overused concept and piece of jargon when it comes to writing fictional characters. I don't know if likability is so important. I think we can think of a lot of characters in fiction or in, like, whether it's books or movies or comics, that you don't particularly like, but you still find enjoyable to watch do their thing. And just off the top of my head, I don't know, like Rorschach and Watchmen. Like, I don't know if anybody really wants to have dinner with Rorschach, but you like watching him. Like, so that's not, I mean, like, that's where it's like likability in a way. Like, it's not that you need to like them. I think you need to like seeing them do their thing. Okay. Which is an important distinction. There are lots of ways to approach introducing a character, as many ways as there are writers or artists or whatever. People who have read DvsM should already have been able to put together that I like to do it very gradually. I like to start small and build and build and build and build and build, and give you a good sense of what this person's normal everyday life is. And that's a little bit what I'm talking about today. So here is Ruben Garcia, aka Young Man in Black, from DvsM 1975. I like to try and show these POV characters in all of them and all the future ones, excuse the term, kind of before the fall. I want to see a glimpse of them in their just everyday life before we move on to the story. I can't articulate why I think that's important. I mean, I could fumble at it. I think it's important to get a sense of who they are, removed from the drama, removed from the conflict, removed from, all the, we're going to start loading weight onto a character. Basically, DvsMs are also like, I'm going to show you somebody, and now we're just going to start giving them things to hold. And we're just going to keep handing them 50-pound plates until, like, they probably can't do it anymore, or barely can do it, or whatever. Before we start testing a character, challenging the character, introducing the drama, introducing the conflict, introducing the horror, introducing the sci-fi, changing their life, hurting them emotionally or physically, whatever we're going to do to them, I would like you to see them in a way that gives you a sense of what their day-to-day life has been like before this day. Okay? So in Ruben's case, Garcia's case, he's a man in black, and in DvsM, men in black they're not these weird magical phantom-like beings. They're government agents. They have a very weird specific job within the government. They're just people. They go and do their job, they do their alien stuff or whatever they're doing, and then they go home and they do their laundry. Like, this is a job. This is the real world. The DvsM is the real world, you know, with little tweaks. I mean, everything else is exactly how you completely recognizable to any of us, except for the elements that I'm introducing in this comic. I thought it was useful when trying to get a grasp of what Ruben is like to show this kind of, for lack of a better term, the boredom he has with a job that most of us can't even conceive of being bored of. Because that was, I thought, you know, a key part of my conception of what a man in black, a real man in black would be like. I've met homicide detectives. I've met people who have top secret clearance. I've met these different people. And what's interesting is, like, for them, it's a job. They may love it. It may be exciting, but it is just a job. And you'll never, if you've ever met someone who's been a cop for like 20 or 30 years, you've never met someone who seems so bored with it. And to you, it would be like, like their stories are crazy. Or someone who's been a soldier forever. You know, it's just like after a while, it's like, you know, that's what it is. I wanted that energy from Ruben. I thought it was important to show him just in the car on a boring drive on an early morning. He's tired. He's sort of crabby. Like, you know, this was sort of, that's Ruben. I want to give you that glimpse. Here's your introduction to Ruben Garcia. I don't want to introduce him in a gunfight with aliens or writing a parking ticket for a flying saucer. I want to see him just doing his job, what it looks like most days. This is what it looks like most days. Until later in the book, it's not like most days. Moving on to Jenny Burke. Jenny, now this isn't representative of most days for her. Most days, she's probably sitting in her trailer smoking or waitressing. But this is something like when she has a little bit of time off, she likes to go and take like nature photography, and she takes her headphones with her and listens to music and just sort of lays in the sun. That is her life, okay? I take her on a really tough journey in 97. So I wanted to show something a little more when I used that metaphor before, you know, of I want to see these characters before the fall. I want to see more of an Eden version of Jenny. I want to see more of like when she's happy, when she's in her element, when she's at ease, when she's at peace, which is not something that Jenny has a lot of in her life. I thought that would accentuate the drama of where she's going, because without spoiling 97, if you haven't read it, Jenny ends up in a really dark, bad place. When you look at, you know, 15 minutes from where we're seeing her right now, it goes bad. And then over the next few days, it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And she ends up in a very, very terrible, dark place. To make that curve steeper, it helps to start her out in a good place. It doesn't help, like I could have started it with her just waiting tables, you know, or sitting in her trailer watching TV or something. And that, I mean, it would have been perfectly legitimate, but I wanted to show, like, I want to show how one of her happiest places, spiritually and physically, like transition to the thing that basically was going to doom her. I liked the drama of that. So now moving on to DvsM 1979. These are not the first panels, but they're very early in the book. And we have the title page here. So this is the main, the POV character of DvsM 1979 is Dr. Veronica Wagner. She's a scientist in a top secret facility. We'll just call it a sort of weapons research facility right now, but we're not going to elaborate on what exactly is going on there. All we need to know is that it's top secret. These are basically government commissioned eggheads thrown in a research facility down in southern Arizona, working on a very important problem for the war effort against the alien invaders. Okay, so 79, 4 years post Ruben Garcia's encounter in Wilcox with, there was a strange violent event that had never happened. Nothing like that had ever happened before. And that's the key. The first time there was real, what we would describe as hostilities with the aliens was in 1975, and the events depicted in DvsM 1975. We were aware of the aliens before that. There were encounters before that. But there was nothing like that. Blood had never been shed in that way. That was a weird aberration. And what you'll find from reading the whole series, and this one too, but it's just sort of accepted, is that that was the first, but definitely not the last, that things escalated. And those sorts of events are becoming more and more common and also bigger in scope. That rather than just aliens trying to pick off some men in black in a particular location, you'll have aliens showing up in military outposts or research facilities or whatever. Like, they're being more and more aggressive. They're managing to hit us in very tender places. The secrecy about it is, in a way, handicapping us, because in not wanting to talk about it, we're spending equal amounts of time trying to defend against these alien incursions and also keep it quiet. So like we sort of are doing this with one hand tied behind our back. Each DvsM, not only is it character focused, it's sort of category of person focused. DvsM 1975 was about Ruben, but also about men in black generally. DvsM 1997 was about Jenny, but also what Jenny represents, sort of non-combatants, civilians, whatever, generally. DvsM 1979 is focused on Dr. Wagner, but also the scientists, the brainy people, the people who are like in a lab somewhere, in boardrooms somewhere, having meetings somewhere, trying to figure out how to deal with the threat they're facing. Like I said, with Ruben and with Jenny, my preferred way to introduce a brand new character to the series is to try and start, like, let's just try to show a day in the life. Things will start to take off from there, but at least initially, let's just show you what their life just has been looking like for some indeterminate amount of time prior to this comic. So in this little sequence, Veronica is pacing in a hallway waiting for a meeting to wrap up. Someone decides to leave the meeting early. There's a little bit of body language here that he's not excited about how the meeting went. He got the balled up fist, he got a little bit. As he passes, he gives her kind of a look. She gives him a look back, and he passes her. And that's just one series of panels on the page. What happens after that is the story starts to really get going. But this is your first introduction to her. Let's talk about all the different things we're seeing here. Okay, well, we're seeing that, what is the reader getting from this sequence? Well, we're getting that while she works here, she's not really in the upper echelon. She's asked to wait outside of a meeting while it's taking place. But she's clearly invested in whatever's going on in there. So she's hanging out, waiting to get some information when it's done. You can tell that she doesn't particularly get along with this person. Why? Well, we'll probably get hints in that and maybe some more explicit stuff about that once we get into the comic. You can see that even though they don't say anything to each other and he's a little bit more confrontational than she is, I mean, you can imagine if you were working with someone and they kind of give you this sort of look passing you in the hallway. He's more confrontational, he's more aggressive, but she is not intimidated. And she actually is not even wilted by that sort of energy. She meets his gaze and watches him go. This was a little tricky drawing thing, is to get that kind of like clenched jaw, like sort of controlled, you know, that sort of like there's a little bit of tension in her face while she's watching this guy as he goes. Another thing, yeah, the jacket. Let me tell you something. But okay, so in the stage of the comic I'm drawing right now, she's lost the jacket. She took it off because of just story reasons. But boy, I was so glad to see it go. The jacket was a bit of a nightmare for the first. I mean, and I don't think she took it off until, let me see here. She didn't take it off until like page 20. And Veronica is in like almost every page of this book. She is, of all my POV characters, she is the most featured. Because, I mean, Ruben is in almost every frame of DvsM 1975, but he's also sharing a lot of space with George and with the family that's being attacked. And like, there's a lot, you know, you're moving around a little bit. 79 really follows Veronica through about, I would say, about 6 hours of her life on this particular day in 1979. And so those first, whatever it was, 20 pages or something, that jacket's in almost every panel I drew. And I was, by the time I was done, like by the time she's taking the jacket off, I was like, I was ready to throw a party. Like I felt like I had finished, it felt like finishing a comic. It's like Meryl Streep's daughter. I'm gonna have to, I don't know who that is. I'll have to look. I'm gonna Google that right now. She has a few daughters. Oh, I see who you might. Well, she could kind of pass for a few of them. That's interesting. Yeah, she could. She could sort of look. Thanks. I appreciate that. You know what? It is, her hair is a little bit of a pain, and especially like this kind of 70s hair where it's long, it's big, it's like there's a lot going on, like there's clips and there's like a barrette in the back, and you know, there's this whole thing. I have to say though, it's a little bit easier than Jenny's hair. Like the fact that it's dark means I just need the shape, which you can work very, like it's like, okay, there's a piece here and then there's a piece in the back and then there's the bangs. Like you can kind of block all that out and then you're just highlighting depending on where you think the light direction is. Like, so when you look here, now that's different from Jenny's, where if we want to hop back to Jenny. Oh, right. Actually, this is not too bad. This is almost just the inverse of that. Block it out in white and then like highlight with dark. But once, and I didn't pull a picture of this, once Jenny's in jail and she doesn't have any hair product and she's not doing anything and it's just sort of like a crazy haystack on her head, that was a pain. That was a real pain every time I had to draw it. That was probably the equivalent of Veronica's jacket in DvsM 1997, was having to do Jenny's hair in jail. It sucked. It really sucked. That old man is a reptilian. That's an interesting. No, that's not the Colonel. You know, this was interesting. This is a good example of a character. You know, I wrote it, and I think all I really described this is he's only referred to in this story as Fritz. And to be honest, I haven't even decided, is that actually his name? Is it Fritz something? Or is he a German guy? And is that like a weird kind of derisive nickname for him? Because as you might gather from this little sequence of events, and that's what I would hope you would gather, that, you know, there's some strained office relationship there where just these two do not get along. She refers to him as Fritz. Other people know who she's talking about when she refers to him as Fritz. I haven't, you know, I haven't thought about it much more than that. And it's also a character that I think in my script, I just had him as an angry looking older man who gives her just like a death glare or a scowl as he passes her in the hallway. And I didn't even have really a sketch of him, you know. And I think even in my thumbnails, I just had, it looked like a little stick figure with like a frown face and angry eyes, you know, like because I was like, I don't know, I'll figure it out on the day. So when it came time to draw him, you know, this was just very much like by the seat of my pants. Like I just started kind of roughing out, like trying to picture. This is one of those weird process things that I don't know if it's interesting to anybody but me, but it's sort of, you just think like, I don't know, you put yourself in, I put myself in her position. But I was working in an office and there was this older tool that I was constantly butting heads with, who is like just confrontational and aggravating. And there's always a little like snip, snip, snip with this person. And it's gone on for so long that we've both given up any even pretending of professionalism or just being cordial. Like we just openly just, you know, you're a fucking asshole. Like that kind of energy at all times. And we both know it. We both feel this. We're on the same page about this. You're an asshole. You're an asshole. Like, and I just conjured in my head, like, what does that guy look like? And I just figured, like, I don't know. I think he's got kind of strong arms. I guess he's kind of lean, but he's got like an old man pot belly. He's got, you know, his shirt's wrinkled. He wears like these big ties. He's got the glasses. He was hot shit 15 years ago. Now he's not. There's a grumpiness about that. I don't know. And it was very much like just drawing him like, I don't know. I think he looks kind of like this, kind of like this. For a little while, he was bald. And I was like, I don't know. No, I think I want him to look more like maybe he did some time in the service. He's got kind of that, and like a period appropriate, like he would have been in his prime in the 40s, maybe somewhere in there. So like he still has that kind of look. Like I don't know. These are just the kind of, you're just making it up as you go, because I also know I'm probably never going to see this character again. Once the story gets going, like this character's relevant. And you'll be addressing the elephant in the room with this character, but will we see this character again? Maybe not. So I don't need to kind of come up with all the little details. I just need to distill it to like, what does this character represent? He's a fucker. That's what this character, and like, fair or not, at least Dr. Wagner regards him as a fucker, you know? And that needs to be and he clearly does not like Dr. Wagner. That's all I need to know. That's enough to get the story going, and we'll just go from there. And we never really need to get into, we can hint why. We're going to get a little bit more information in the next few pages, but it doesn't matter because again, this is introductions. I'm just giving you a glimpse of this character's day in the life. And all you need to know is she doesn't get along with everybody in the office. Why? Well, we're going to find that out as we go. And that will help us kind of brick by brick, give you a sense of who this person is and what her day-to-day looks like and what her role is and what was special about today. What was this meeting she was hanging out for, but not in while it was wrapping up? Why might this guy be irritated? I'm just trying to just little by little. This has always been the philosophy of DvsM. I'm going to introduce it to you as if you were a fly on the wall. And just trust, like if I pick the time right, if I plant you on the wall at the right moment in time, you'll get it. Everything will fall into place and you'll get all the information you need to get. It'll happen very naturally. You don't need me to sit as a narrator and explain like, this is what's going on and this is where this base is and this is what she does. And You know, like you're going to see, you're going to pick it all up as it goes. Okay, let's see. I think that's this also, this scene and a lot of these scenes in this installation show the advantages of creating your sets in SketchUp, just as a reference. Obviously, this is not, what you're seeing there isn't SketchUp, but there's a model of this set. Maybe I'll show that next time or something. Certainly before this comic comes out. I built a SketchUp model of a lot of this compound with like hallways and meeting rooms and labs and all this stuff, because it's important to me to be able to clearly visualize these spaces and also plan my panels. You know, if I know I have like, okay, we're gonna have a view in this room, how should that look? Well, I know, okay, so I know I need a character here. I know I need, you know, this or this. But there's still lots of room in there. What angle are we viewing it from? Like from how close or how far? This is where, to me, it's very movie-like, where if I have a SketchUp model of like this hallway, by the way, for example, I can set it up and I can play with the angles. I can pull it around. What if it's like this? What if it's like this? What if it's higher or lower? And I can experiment with it from panel to panel. Like this is a more low angle, obviously. But then, you know, now going more Dr. Wagner's kind of eye line for the world, where like we're sort of, if this was a movie, you'd kind of get this sense of, here's the base, here's the hallway, here's this person in the hallway, we're kind of pulling behind this person. And now like the camera is kind of drifting in, like the camera in Mario 64. Mario shows up and the camera kind of like swoops in and like, okay, now we're gonna settle down. Like we're gonna now ride along, we're a ghost floating along in the world of DvsM, and we're gonna follow Dr. Wagner for a little while. Yeah, he's not a big guy. He's just got a lot of alpha energy, you know. He's a little scrappy, he's a little aggressive. This isn't really spoilery the way I imagined it. Fritz, he doesn't have a position of power among these scientists, but he has a position of tenure. Like he's been there the longest. He's made some exciting breakthroughs. He's got a powerful like force of will. And most people kind of treat him as a de facto supervisor or like, you know, head, even though he's not. Maybe partly just to avoid getting into fights with him. Like and there was, I think some of it was earned. I think maybe 5 years before this, or even a couple years before this, he was maybe more liked, and because he felt more confident and powerful in his position and useful. And I think there's been some, mostly because of this war effort and bringing in a lot of new people and new approaches and challenging sort of the old ways they were thinking about things, it's destabilized him a little bit. And that's made him a pill, I think. There will never be a big like character creation analysis video on Fritz, because again, I sketched out just enough about Fritz for me to be able to write that situation. And you know, there's not like reams and reams I could say about Fritz. On the other hand, there will be a character creation and analysis on Dr. Wagner, which I would like to do right around the launch of the comic or shortly after, certainly before I go to Phoenix Fan Fusion. I would like to have a video just deep diving on her, as I will for all the POV characters in the DvsM series eventually. I don't think it's Fritz Harlan, no. Shit stain. Everyone has had a shit stain at their job. I mean, if you've worked anywhere, for any length of time, there's somebody who's been there forever who thinks they're somebody. And sometimes those people who think they're somebody, they're actually somebody. But then there's people who maybe used to be somebody, or they were never somebody. They're just a, I mean, we all know this, and this is why I can be emphatic about it. Just a fucking pain in the ass. And that no one wants to have to deal with. Everyone is like walking on eggshells around because like you either want to like have a good dealing with them or none. You just, it's like, ugh, like do I have to really, like you only want to have, if you have to deal with this person, you want it to be you don't want it to be antagonistic because you know that you just don't need that. You don't need that drama. And there's that person, I think that's also what Fritz is. It's funny, we're talking a lot about Fritz, and Fritz is not, you know, again, after, we're probably not ever going to see him again. But he's kind of, I think because he's losing his position a little bit, it's making him more aggressive holding on to it. And we've all worked with someone like that too. Someone who feels like they need to remind everybody, like, I'm important here, which is the worst kind of person to work with. Not the worst, one of the worst. Yeah, that's a blast too. Because I had made decisions about Dr. Wagner, about her age, and her gender, which is stuff I'll get more into when I do the character creation analysis. But just for a sneak preview on that, there were a lot of inspirations for Dr. Wagner, but I think the earliest germ of an idea for her was actually based on my own experience. So I looked very youthful for a long time. I still look, I would like to think, younger than my age. But when I was in my 20s, like in college, I looked like I was probably 16. You know, so I looked young. And, you know, in my 20s, I looked like a teenager. In my 30s, I looked like I was in my 20s. I had an internship at the medical examiner's office here in Maricopa County, where, you know, it's basically the county morgue, okay? And one of my responsibilities, I might have talked about this once on a previous stream. One of my responsibilities, it was a small one, it didn't come up very often, but it would be something I would be tasked with if it came up, was touring through people who were visiting, police officers, government people, whoever, who needed like a tour, you know, wanted whatever, a tour of the morgue. And I remember on a few occasions, and even though I was dressed up for, you know, I had my white button down and my slacks, and my hair was not as long as it is now, and, you know, I looked very professional. I also looked like I was, you know, 16 or 17. And there were a few people who didn't even attempt to hide their sort of derision for the fact that this child is going to tour us through this kid works here. This kid's gonna walk us through. Like it was. I never quite forgot that feeling of being just looked at and dismissed. Just like, you can't possibly deserve to be here. You can't possibly be capable of doing this job. And in my case, it was, you're too young, even though I wasn't. I was a college kid. Like, I was certainly old enough and knowledgeable enough with my education to tour people through a morgue. But like, you would get that energy. I just thought that was an interesting thing to explore. I wanted a character, a main character in this kind of top secret government lab setting who elicited that reaction from people on a regular basis. For different reasons, I wasn't comfortable. It's like, well, I can't do exactly what my situation was. It's like really like a Doogie Howser type. I didn't want to do that. To me, the next best thing is like, well, what if it's a diminutive pretty girl? like a young pretty girl who's small. Like that would, I think, especially in this era, 1979, with a vastly male, you know, company, that would elicit that reaction on, that would get me to the same place. This person who's constantly sort of dismissed, this person who's constantly sort of sold short. So that's sort of what we're seeing here now. But she's no, you know, shrinking violet. Like she's got maybe that in common with Jenny. We go back to Jenny, where she's scrappy, she's confrontational. Now Jenny's more scrappy and confrontational in a felony sort of way. Dr. Wagner is more confrontational in a professional way. Like she's not going to be cowed. She's more, to me, if I had to pick examples of characters in other fiction, think Clarice Starling in Silence of the Lambs. Think, I can't remember the character's name or the actress's name, but the main character in Zero Dark 30. Think Jodie Foster's character in Contact. Like characters like that, characters that, yes, there's been weird pushback because of just their appearance, but it's just kind of made them a little more confrontational. And that's kind of goes full circle back to what I was talking about. I think character likability is not that important. I think relatability, or being able to like some aspects, or at least finding them entertaining to watch, is what's more important. I would say that Dr. Wagner, much like Jenny, the adaptation to that isn't necessarily winning. It's not a winning personality move. Like, I would not call Dr. Wagner, and you'll see when you read this book, likable. Like, she's prickly, and she's short, and she kind of is confrontational when she doesn't have to be. I think she, you know, a few years of professional experience with this has her responding in kind. Like she's kind of a balled up fist person. She's ready for someone. She's constantly on the edge of someone saying something to her that's going to piss her off. And she's always ready to like swing back, you know? And I think it's made her just sort of, ironically, also a bit of a pain in the ass, also a bit difficult, also, you know, a bit of a drag that people are like trying to, now there's two sharks in this pond, in this pool of water that people are trying to like not cross paths with, or not cross at least. That's, anyway. Let's see here. Squatch really likes the idea that Fritz is a lizard person. Sequel comic called Fritz. If whoever wants to fan fiction a Fritz prequel, let's talk. An entitled coworker. That's a good summary. Entitled coworker. Yeah. That's Fritz. That's Fritz. Or like, you know, them all in the lunchroom and Fritz making he's pontificating some declaration. This is how things should be going down here, you know. And like, no, lots of people in there disagreeing, but no one wanting to go there. Everyone just sort of quietly eating their ham sandwich, you know. That's Fritz. That's my idea of Fritz. Yes. Yeah. And like I said, you know, this is where I didn't expect really to do two female POV characters in a row. Like this was when I first wrote the outline for 79, I knew it was about scientists. I had this Dr. Wagner character who wasn't even named, but I had like the POV character will be this scientist in the lab, and this sequence of events will happen, and this is where we'll end up. It was, again, just a thing. It was a little bit like, if people remember the character creation video for DvsM 1997, Jenny's character was originally conceived as a Native American. And I blinked because I didn't want to write a story about a Native American with a history of alcoholism. Like I just felt like I'm not comfortable with this. So, you know, fairly late in the planning stages, the Jenny character became a white female and became Jenny. This is a similar thing with Dr. Wagner. Dr. Wagner was just some scientist and not taken seriously or butting heads or having conflicts with other people in the team. You know, there was something like that. And I was like, well, what is it? What is it? And I think probably if you tried to pin me down a few years ago and said, like, what's the POV character in 79 going to be like? I probably would have said the story that I was talking about, told you about the morgue, me being an intern at the morgue and looking really young for my age and not being taken seriously because of that. It was only as I started working, it's like, I don't want to do a Doogie Howser comic. Like, I don't want Doogie Howser and DvsM. I like, what's a different way to do this? And to me, again, I don't know why it's twice in a row, but to me, it's like the natural alternative is like, what if she's young, small, and pretty? Like that would sort of get me to the same place, and that's where we're at. And so now I've ended up with, of the 3 DvsMs, 2 of them women-led, which is I'm totally cool with, but I didn't expect, you know, years ago. The next one is going to be swinging the pendulum back in another direction because the next one, so to recap, 75 Man in Black focused, 97 Eyewitness focused, 79 Scientist focused. The next one, 2001, is Soldier focused. And you're going to have like a SEAL Team 6 type in 2001. That's going to be like a sausage party. It's just going to be like 6 guys up in the woods. Okay. So it's, you know, by the time I get done with DvsM, I feel like it will be fairly balanced, where you'll have some people of color, you'll have some women, you'll have some white guys, you'll have some old people, you have some young people. Like it'll be a little bit of everything, which is what I would hope DvsM is. I mean, DvsM is about, if you want to get very broad, people and people reacting to adversity and people reacting to the sort of impersonal demands of the world around them. And people come in a lot of shapes and sizes. So that's, you know, I would like DvsM in the end to be fairly kind of about everybody within that confines of they all take place at least partially in Arizona. They all take place at least partially in a certain period in history, you know? So, I mean, it's not going to be like, you're not going to have like the experience of someone in Beijing during this period. But within that, it's like, okay, now let's try to cast a wide net. Fritz, I mean, I bet he has a really, also full circle to Rorschach, I bet he has a very angry diary. I bet it's just like, these people at work, they're all morons. I'm the only person who knows this. Like a very Fritz thing to say is, if I left, those people would have no idea what to do. Like that is a very Fritz energy. You know, and I think Fritz has that. It's like, I'm the only thing keeping the wheels on this thing. It's like, stop it. Just stop it. Crossover. Confirmed. DvsM, Breaking Bad, same universe. Thursday night. Oh, what else can I say about this little sequence? This is not the first glimpse you get of Dr. Wagner, but it's, you know, I always do not always, 75 I didn't, but I like to do the delayed title. I think this actually takes place on page 3. Actually, I can check that. Page 4. We all know Fritz. I don't need to tell you more about Fritz. You get Fritz. We've all known Fritz. We've all worked with the Fritz. Here's the last thing I'll say about Fritz. I won't, to avoid controversy, I won't mention the person or the company. But I was reading an article recently where a guy was talking about his experience working at a big company with a very kind of a famous, I'm being very careful here, a person we all know, okay? His experience working in this company with this person. This person, I think at that time was or was not, maybe it was probably the CEO or at least highly placed, but definitely like a huge, like the money person in this company, like the person who's really like, and also kind of the outward face. Sub whatever person you think fits in, like it all applies, whether you're talking about Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or anybody, like that person where it's like, are they actually responsible for the thing? No, but are they the, you know, the carnival barker? Are they the projection? Yes. Okay. And this person was saying when they were working there, what was fascinating to them was that the company seemed to have two main duties. One was to do what the company was doing, make the thing that they were selling, okay? The other thing, though, that they seemed to spend like 40% of their time on was managing this personality that was the CEO. Like that was a colossal drain and colossal energy cost among the upper echelon of this company, just managing and wrangling this pain in the ass, you know? And that to me is also big Fritz energy. Like Fritz, the Fritz in your workplace, the Fritz in this workplace is the person who is now actually, if someone analytical was like taking a step back and looking at the situation in this company, realizing that this person is kind of a net loss. Whatever they're contributing, whatever they add to the company, whatever it is they're doing is being not just offset, but canceled out by just the drain on morale, on people trying to figure out how to deal with this character, on people avoiding this person, people delaying issues or putting off issues because they don't want to have a conversation with this guy, people spending time in their office. And this is one that I know I've worked places that's like this, where you know you got to talk to this person and you spend time in your office beforehand or your workstation or wherever you are trying to figure out what's the angle. Because it's not as easy as just going in there and saying your piece. You know that that potentially is going to be its own headache. So you've got to figure out how to talk about the thing, how to bring it up with them, how to trick them into being helpful when you know their normal inclination is to not be helpful. That's Fritz. Fill in your own experience, you know, with a Fritz in your career. You know, there's someone there who, in a perfect world, if there was any justice, like the boss would wake up one day and realize, like, this person is actually a drag, like an anchor on the team, the company, the goals, whatever. And if I just fired this person, we'd all be better off. But for some reason, so many places just don't want to do that. Either they can't recognize it or they don't want to be cold that way. Or what I've experienced in my own field, because they don't want to deal with potential HR complaints, because they don't want to deal with the headache, they don't want to get sued, they don't want to have the pushback, they don't want to have the big fight about it. They're sitting there and they're saying, well, this person's going to retire in the next few years anyway, so let's just wait it out. Like that's a real thing. I mean, maybe you've all experienced this too. There's people who are, or they know, like, this person's not going to work here forever. They'll find another job. This person's talked about moving to a different state. Like, let's just hold tight. Rather than deal with this problem, Rather than have a hard conversation, rather than fire this person, rather than do whatever you need to do, let's just give it a couple years. And so the thing keeps happening. That is Fritz. Fritz is the, maybe it'll get better. Fritz is the, they're going to retire. Fritz is the, they've talked about moving. Or like they've talked about having a baby. Once they have a baby, they might leave. Or whatever the thing is. Like it's this person where if you would just have some balls, we could fix this today. But it doesn't get fixed. And we've all been there. We all know what that's like. Dr. Wagner, our POV character, what we can also appreciate is she's still young enough and full of righteousness, maybe even self-righteousness, that argument of like, we just got to give him some room doesn't even sound like English. Okay? Like she's just like, why are we kowtowing to this fucker? You know, like that's her energy. And while that's something that we can all kind of feel good, like root for, we also know, I think, as grown-ups, that presents its own set of problems. Fritz is a pain in the ass, but you know what's also a pain in the ass? Dr. Wagner in constant dust-ups with Fritz. Like now, like that doesn't make anybody's life easier, okay? So that's just a glimpse of like what we're walking into this building. We slipped through security. We slipped through like all the biometric scanners. We're in this top secret facility in 1979. We're following this scientist character. And there's this other scientist character that just came out of the room, and there's drama, and this is what we're kind of walking into. Is this critical to where the story goes? Plot-wise, no. Character-wise, absolutely. This is the brick by brick by brick by brick of you getting a sense of Dr. Wagner. And I've always operated under the assumption that this is the best way to get this stuff to pay off, and why we're going to go full circle to Andor. I'm not saying DvsM is anywhere near as good as Andor, but one of the things I like about Andor is I think we share, and the showrunners of Andor and I share a storytelling sensibility, a character building sensibility. We share an aesthetic. It appears that we are on the same page when it comes to, if we take our time and gradually introduce this character little by little, and you get to learn more and more and more about this person through just sort of very organically, eventually you, without even realizing it, you really feel like you know this person, like them or not, or critical of them or not, supportive of them or not, whatever your reaction is, you now feel a sort of a closeness. You understand this person. And the reason I'm doing that is when I start handing Dr. Wagner those 50-pound plates to carry, like you feel the weight for her way more than if I had just opened it up with shit happening. Like, let's really introduce you to this person, build a relationship with this person. And now when things go sideways, now when she faces one of the most life-changing days of her life, like you're in it with her, you get it, you get how she's probably reacting, you get how she's probably thinking about all this, you get all the things going through her head, you get the situation, like there's just more to understand there. And you're not focused so much on the spectacle, which there should be some spectacle, it's a sci-fi horror comic, but more on her experience of the spectacle. I think that's, that's what makes it a character-focused comic as opposed to a, let's watch a robot punch a dinosaur comic. I was not talking about Trump, but that's another good example. When you hear, and look, some people are fans of Trump, whatever. But that's not the point. The point is when you hear the stories about that White House, like Trump or hate Trump, you can't deny that a lot of the stories coming out of the White House were not just people doing their jobs, but figuring out how to do their jobs around this personality. how to kind of damage control, how to kind of present things in the right way so you got the reaction you wanted, how to not present things in the wrong way. So like, you know, it's just, there's all this thought spent on the personality as opposed to the mission. Okay. I was not talking about Trump, but he's another good example of like Trump, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, like, I don't know, like we can all just name them. Some boss that you've worked for. It's all the same. Like, or not even necessarily a boss. It could be a coworker that's just a pill, and too much time is spent figuring out how to navigate the pill. That's Fritz energy. Yeah, see, some people, I mean, look, most people aren't confrontational. And especially, you know, when it comes to someone who's a pain in the ass on the team, it's hard. It's hard to... I was a supervisor. I've fired people. It's rare that you feel 100% clean about it. Like, it's only in the most flagrant things where it's like, oh, no, that's a fireable offense. Nope, they've got to go. Usually it's like, ugh. And I can tell you from personal experience, there are people that, you know, worked for me where if I was a soulless robot, I would be able to say, yeah, probably we'd be better off if we got rid of this person. But for some reason, the idea of like actually doing that, like just is just a bridge too far. Like it just, for whatever reason. And I think that's that's how the Fritzes get by in the world, where there's just something about them where it's not an easy cut. It's not like they stole money. It's not like they're, you know, lying on their time card or whatever the thing. Like it's just something where it's like, it's hard to fire someone because like they're just a fucker. That's a weird... Places will do that, usually under the code of not a fit or whatever. But like that's not an easy move, and especially for a guy like Fritz who has been there for a while and is kind of a big deal. Maybe not as big a deal as he is in his own mind, but a big deal. Okay, I did not expect this to be a deep dive on Fritz, but that's fine. That's that's it. That's it. We're not going to talk about Fritz or his possible reptilian heritage or whatever. But in terms of just writing, Fritz exists to help explain Dr. Wagner. Like if you have a character on a desert island, it's very hard to really show you much about who this character is. Because odds are they're probably just waking up and collecting coconuts and fishing a little bit and sitting on the beach. And that's pretty much what most people would be doing in that situation. It doesn't tell you anything. To really kind of help show a character, you need them to be kind of bouncing off somebody else. Or at least doing something that's unique. You know, Desert Island doesn't tell you much because what are their options? Jenny taking pictures on the side of a canyon tells you something. She has all sorts of options. That's what she's choosing to do. Ruben, you learn something about in talking to George about this movie he saw and what he thought about it and what he thinks about his job, whatever. And then now we're going to learn a little bit something about Dr. Wagner with no words. She hasn't even said it. There hasn't been a word spoken yet by this stage of the comic. But you learn something about her. You learn something about both these people. And I've given you way more background where you know more what's going on. But like I said, what are the basics you know here? You know there was... She's waiting for... It's not clear from the ones I'm showing you, but it's clear if you've read from the beginning of the comic, she's just pacing a hallway with her arms folded slowly, just kind of killing time, kind of meditatively pacing out this hallway. There's a meeting. The first guy leaves, gives her a dirty look. She's not cowed. She gives him a hard look back as he goes by. Okay. You're getting now like the drip start. You know, this is, we know a little bit about her. We know a little bit about her. And as the story goes on, you know more and more and more. And again, by the time stuff starts happening, I feel like you really will know her. He does a little bit, yeah. But except with a mustache. Yeah. Okay. So it's been an hour, 10 minutes. So future, if I do this a few more times in the run up to the release of DvsM 1979, it may or may not be similar format where I'll go and look at what I would consider equivalent frames from previous DvsMs. I might, like, that's sort of fun. Or it may just be one frame from 79 that I want to talk about a little bit. I'm going to steer clear of spoilers. I'm not ready to start really getting into details about what it's about or any of that, but pick out things where I feel like I can give you a little peek behind the curtain and a sense of the thought that goes into a panel, or what you're trying to do, or how I came to the decisions I came to. So we'll see. It won't be every week. It'll be when I don't know, when the whim strikes, when I don't have anything else to talk about, when whatever. Christmas is coming. I need to do some cleaning and decorating. I'm having people over Christmas Eve. So I need to get the place set up, which, you know, I wish I could say I get excited. I don't know. Am I different from anybody? Like, I wouldn't consider that fun. The actual doing of it, like the event, could be fun. But like the idea of like, oh, I gotta get the. Does anyone out there get excited about that? The idea of like cleaning the house and getting it all nice and presentable and putting up decorations and stuff. I don't. That's not me. I don't know. Oh, what else? I saw Glass Onion, which was good, a lot of fun. I didn't love it as much as I loved Knives Out, which is, it's not really a prequel. I mean, the stories, it's only one character in common. They're not really related, but I thought Knives Out was much better written. I don't know about much better. It's better written. I thought it was a tighter script, and I didn't perceive with Knives Out any little holes, where with Glass Onion I did. There were little parts where afterward I was like, that doesn't really make sense, but wouldn't that mean that blah blah, you know, whatever. But it was fun. It's a fun movie, and I want to see lots more of Rian Johnson's kind of Agatha Christie-esque murder mystery movies. I love them. I mean, I love both. It's just, I think Knives Out is a lot better. What else have I seen? I've not seen Black Panther 2 yet. I'm probably just going to watch it on Disney Plus. I don't go to. Pandemic broke my going out to movies habit. Like, I'm kind of content. Like, I do in some ways prefer the theater experience, but it's I don't know. It's something. I never thought I'd be this guy. Like, I've never preferred watching stuff at home. I don't think to this day, I don't prefer watching things at home, but there's something about going out to the theater that's just, I don't know. I've fallen out of practice with it. And I think that's all I've got. I am going to make myself something hot to drink and get back to work on page 43. I would say I'm about, I don't know how far through, but I would like to finish it tomorrow night. So I got to push today and tomorrow. Anyway, hope you all have a good rest of your weekend. I will probably be streaming back on Saturday this coming weekend, like I've done Sunday a couple times. But the only reason I didn't do it yesterday is because I was recording those Making Comics things, and that's too much in one day. Like I wanted to leave some time for drawing. So probably next Saturday. I'll let you know as usual the day before. Have a productive weekend. Have a productive week, and I will see you next time.